flights, hotel reservations, and on-site meetings. Now, it just requires a smartphone. How can digital-first salespeople still build trusted, personalized engagements with their customers? Twilio Frontline, a pre-built programmable mobile app. Your sales team can download Frontline like any app directly to their phones. There they can view customer details directly from your company's CRM and then start building relationships compliantly using channels like SMS, WhatsApp, or a voice call. We built the app so your teams can build the relationships with Twilio Frontline.
Hey everyone, so as you just saw, Twilio Frontline is a programmable mobile app to help salespeople and relationship managers build personal customer relationships. And we're really excited to tell you all that it is now generally available. My name is Chris Pawinski. I'm a product marketer here at Twilio, focused on Frontline. And I'm joined today with Mark. Mark, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Chris, thanks so much. Hey, everybody, I'm Mark Devins. I'm a product manager on Twilio Frontline.
So Mark and I work very closely together, and the thing that we always like to talk about is rather than just tell you about Frontline and why we're so excited about it, we're going to get into a live demo, and we're going to see it in action. So I'm going to play the client throughout. Mark's going to play the salesperson, and he's going to really start showing you some of the things you can do with Twilio Frontline. So if you have any questions throughout, just go ahead and drop them in the comments below, and we'll do our best to have fellow Twilions answer throughout or follow up after. And with that, I'll pass it back to Mark. Mark, let's dive into the demo.
Awesome. So let me go ahead and share my screen so that we can get this live. Give me just a second there.
Yep,
Cool.
seeing something. I think we're good there.
Awesome. All right. So what we see going on in the background here, there's a few different things going on, but I've got my mobile phone up here. I've got the Frontline app. I'm actually going to give me 1 second here. I'm going to log out so that we can see what that experience is like from scratch. So sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit on this. And I started from a logged in state.
It's actually it's a really good point though, because I think we're going to show exactly what we're going to get into here. But there's security around the sign-on experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. So all right, I've got it pulled back up here from the login screen, and so what we see here is you're going to sign into your workspace, and so that's something that you configure within the Twilio console. And so I've got mine right here. And then we get logged in here. I'm using Okta as my identity provider in this account, but you can use any SAML 2.0 identity provider. So that's Okta, Microsoft Azure, Active Directory, Salesforce, even Google Workspace will work as an identity provider for Frontline. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my password. And then I get signed in here on Frontline. And so when we come over to the screen that's behind this, what this actually is this is Airtable, and I'm using this as my CRM. And so one of the beautiful things about Frontline is that you can use anything as your CRM to load customer details into Frontline. And so you could do all the common CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, but you could use Airtable, Google Sheets, your own proprietary CRM, as many customers have, or a customer data warehouse. It's just infinitely flexible in regards to what data source that you're plugging into and loading those contacts in.
So, Mark, I know that's awesome that you can just basically connect into any type of database really and go really deep with integrations. Do we have any out-of-the-box integrations or guides that help with maybe some of those more common CRMs that we see?
Yeah, so we've got code samples that we can share for, again, those more common ones like Salesforce and HubSpot that help to get you started more quickly there. And it's an area where we're going to be beefing up in the future to make sure that this is, much more straightforward and easy to get set up with these more common ones. But really, even with something that you're building yourself, it's a pretty basic, format. You take an API request to the CRM, you format it back in the way in which Frontline would be expecting it. And we've seen totally custom CRM integrations that are a few dozen lines of code. So even when you're building this yourself, it's pretty lightweight.
I always love pointing to the how many lines of code does it take kind of question. So that's a very good overall general number that you threw out there. You mentioned customization a few times and kind of said you could go whichever way you want with this. Putting you on the spot for a second, you've worked with a lot of internal teams and builders that we have here at Twilio, external customers. What's maybe like one of your favorite integrations that you've seen that kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that we can show off some of the customization here. Let's start with kind of diving into the contacts. So we can see when we come into my own customer information, we've got things like appointment history coming back here. You can actually roll up across multiple fields in your CRM to return data that's relevant. And this is responded to exactly at the point in time that you're looking at this. So let's say you've got an appointment today and you want to give directions to that customer's office or their home or wherever you're going to be meeting with them. You can return that at exactly when it's relevant. So there's other things that we have here where for Chris, we're returning the loyalty status on his account. So you can see, kind of what status that customer is in. So there's some things that you can do there, and we'll talk more about customization as we go into some of the conversational workflows.
Very cool. Very cool.
Cool. So Chris, is it all right if I send you a message and so we can show off how this is working?
Let's do it. I will play a very excited client to engage with my salesperson or relationship manager, Mark.
Cool. All right. So we will go into the SMS channel and I'll say, hey, Chris, all set for your next appointment. Taking advantage of the spell check or autocorrect there.
I love that. That's good. Let's see. Just got a message on my phone. I'm feeling pretty excited today, so I am going to throw an emoji at the front and then say, "Hey, Mark." Yes, definitely. And I'm going to go ahead and click send. So that should be coming through in a second.
Cool. All right. So we see that came back in real time. And something I'm going to point out to you quickly here is, Frontline is definitely a mobile first application. I do have loaded up in the side here our newly launched desktop version over the web. And just so you can see here, if I send a message back to Chris, it goes right back and forth into both applications. So just to kind of show off some of that there briefly. But let's go into some of the customization that you can do. And what we have modeled out in this demo is a consent workflow. So we have here in the CRM a double opt-in workflow where we can say whether Chris has consented to messaging from my company and whether he has consented to messaging over SMS specifically. So let's go ahead and mark those both as no. And send just a very basic message back to Chris. So we see that it has failed because what it's doing is it's looking up and saying that I am not actually allowed to contact Chris. And so
I can confirm on my end that I did not receive a message. So as the client, I didn't receive that message at all. So it failed before even coming close to hitting my handset.
Perfect. Thank you for confirming that. And what's actually happening there is we're taking advantage of the Conversations product that is powering Frontline and using those pre-webhooks to look up against the CRM and see whether we're allowed to send Chris a message. And so it's doing that evaluation saying, no, we are not allowed to send Chris a message, and it's failing that, making sure that it doesn't actually make it over to him. So now let's flip that flag. And so he's consented to communication from the company, but not specifically over the SMS channel. And send the same exact message that I just sent a moment ago. And it's going to say, yes, we're allowed to message him, but not over SMS. And we have modeled out here. It will translate that message automatically to ask Chris whether he wants to opt into communication. And so, Chris, if you could do me a favor and respond with a yes to that.
I can. Responding yes now.
Awesome. And we saw, about half a second before it made it into Frontline, it actually updated the CRM to reflect that new status and show that Chris had taken that opt-in action. So it's just a lightweight example showing how a CRM and Frontline can both kind of operate on top of conversations and show some of those two-way workflows.
Yeah, I really love this because, looking at the frontline experience that you're showing, it has that kind of consumer messaging app like feel, right? It's what you would be used to in texting or a channel like WhatsApp or whatever it might be. But then you're adding in all this logic and these workflows and these contexts. And I don't feel like you don't feel that as the salesperson, but all this stuff is working into the back end to make sure you're maintaining compliance, that context is being pulled in, that things are updating where and when they need to, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, this is a really basic opt-in example, but we can talk about some of the interesting ways that we're seeing people do this. So let's say you might be taking an order from a customer and they really want to jump the gun, and rather than collecting payment through a web link that you send them, they say, like, can't you just process this over my credit card? And they type in their credit card number and send it over to you. You probably don't want to be responsible for that credit card information over the messaging channel, and you certainly don't want to expose the 16 digits and the expiration and the CVV number and everything like that to your employee. But what you can do is you can actually evaluate, things that look like credit card numbers and auto redact that. And so that, when that actually makes it to the message, you can asterisk out every number in that credit card number and make sure it never actually gets committed to the message, and then allow your employee to follow up and say, actually, we don't collect credit card information over the conversation. Let's follow the proper channels to get that.
That's really cool. And didn't we recently see a company in the pharmaceutical space implement their own spell check, essentially?
Yeah, that was a really fun one as well, where we've seen even as consumers that oftentimes the names for specific drugs can have interesting spellings, and sometimes when you're trying to type those out on your phone, the autocorrect may not really like what you're putting in there and trying to change it to something else. And so one of the pharmaceutical companies that we've been working with got really creative, and they basically implemented a server-side spell check to take those common corrections or misspellings and make sure that they get corrected as they're sent to the customer, so that they're never, incorrectly referring to one of their own product names.
So cool. I mean, we always say we can't wait to see what you build. And I don't think there's ever been a day or month that goes by where there hasn't been some new use case or addition that gets built into something that we provide where you're like, that is just genius. Like, that is so creative and cool, exactly. And it works and it's functional. I just love it. So cool.
Yeah, it really is a lot of fun seeing what people come up with. All right, so Chris, let's say we are going back and forth over text, but sometimes it's just a lot faster to hop over to a phone call to get that resolution there. So Chris, is it all right if I place a quick call to you?
Yes, please do.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to send that over. We're going to see that ring, and then it has connected. And so, Chris, if you're hearing me, hopefully you hear me okay. I'm going to hang up on the call, and we're going to see that call record written to the conversation. So you can see that just right alongside your message history in a nice and clean way. And what's going on here is, the same way that we've spoken to the conversations product that's powering this. It's Twilio programmable voice powering the voice calling. And so if you want to write these calls back to your CRM to log when they've happened, if you want to be able to take recordings of these calls or implement custom workflows on the voice calls that are happening, you have all those powers of the APIs and products that are powering Frontline that you can interact with directly yourself.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I think at some point there's always that burning question or maybe that last minute thing that you need to tell a client, and it just, I say it a lot where it pays to pick up the phone. There are just certain interactions where that quick call and voice-to-voice type communication can just get you what you need, get them on their way. And the thing that I love is just like, you're having this text message conversation, you place the call, and then there's a record of it. You can see it right within that threaded conversational experience, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Chris, we've talked about SMS, now voice calling. So let's take a look at the experience over WhatsApp, because it's a little bit different. So Twilio integrates WhatsApp using the WhatsApp Business API. And so there are some things that are a little bit different between the business API and the consumer experience. And one of those, when we come into that WhatsApp conversation, you'll see that whereas over SMS, I had the ability to kind of just type out a message and send it, the WhatsApp Business API, WhatsApp is really concerned about spam on the platform. They want to make sure that people are it's a good consumer experience for the businesses that are contacting them. So they make sure that you're using these pre-approved templates to contact your customers when you're using the Business API. So you'll see that I can open up this conversation by selecting one of these templates, and I just have one as an example here. You could definitely have a lot more, and I'm going to go ahead and send that over to Chris. And so we'll see that's going through the sending. In just a moment, it shows basically that it has been delivered and then read. You see these all update in real time. And then Chris, if you could do me a favor and again, respond to that.
Yep. I like the read receipt call out there. That's cool that you can see that it's been read.
Yeah, no, it's one of those cool things that WhatsApp actually exposes that over the API. And then, so now we see that Chris responded, and now I have that free form text input that I can message back and forth with Chris. And it opens up what's basically a 24-hour conversation session. And so again, they're concerned about spam on the platform. They don't want me now to be able to reach out to Chris whenever I want to. They really want to put the customer in control of that conversation. So if it's been more than 24 hours since Chris last messaged me, I'll have to reopen that with one of the templates again. But Frontline really bakes that right into the experience. You don't really have to think about it, and it makes it really clear in those callouts when you have to use them and when you don't.
Yeah, it seems like it's building the compliance like right into the interactions, and you don't really think about it, but it's just there. It's how you use WhatsApp. Like that brings up another question mark, because I know we've talked to quite a few customers who are like really interested in WhatsApp and Frontline. And some of those customers have company issued devices, but WhatsApp is still a big challenge for them. Why is that?
Yeah, so WhatsApp can be a challenge because, it's such a conversational platform that people really want to make it seem like it's a familiar thing. And, you can fall back and sometimes you forget that you're communicating on behalf of your business. These contacts in WhatsApp are right alongside your friends and your family. And what Frontline actually allows you to do is to separate those out so you have different experiences. And as an employee, you can separate out your work from your personal life. And so, we've talked about some of the advantages to a company in rolling out a solution like Frontline, that they get full access to the conversations that are happening. They can build out these opt-in workflows or, kind of redact information that's needed. But even as an employee, I think it's a really positive experience to be able to get a phone number that is separate, so you don't have to worry about people kind of contacting you from your business outside of your, on your personal number where you talk to your friends and family. But even having those conversations in a different place is, we probably all have that experience where you message the wrong person. Maybe you send something to your friend and you accidentally reach out to your spouse or vice versa. And that's a lot more dangerous in the context of the business environment. So, for me, it's actually really appealing to have that separation of worlds there.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, right? So it makes it so you don't have to use the personal WhatsApp account or personal SMS account, right? Essentially. And one of the things that I always think about is just like how many meetings are in our days, right? You're always on the go. You're like, especially with some of the customers we're selling to, like maybe people are on their feet all day and they're always moving. They're having a bunch of meetings and conversations, whether that's a coffee for 5 or 10 minutes or like an hour-long meeting or questions in between. And so I can get to the end of the day with my list of clients in Frontline, and I just have every conversation that's happened throughout that day in order that's just business related. And it's not just that day, right? It's over time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Chris. So I think we've gone through a lot of the features here in Frontline at a high level. I think there's one last thing that I want to show off. You let me know if you think I'm missing anything, but that's transfers. So this same conversation, whether it's over WhatsApp, over SMS, over voice, if there's ever an opportunity for someone else who's on my team as an employee to better assist the customer or client that I'm working with, you actually have the ability to transfer that conversation. So in this demo environment, I've got Wei Ji. She is a colleague of mine. She's the product designer on Frontline, and I could transfer that conversation over to her. I'm not actually going to do that right now because I don't think she's expecting that and will be probably kind of confused as to why she just got that notification that I transferred Chris over to her. But if I were to do that, she would see the entire history of the conversation, and then be able to continue communicating with Chris very seamlessly, and just pick up right where I left off.
Yeah, that's really cool. So as me as the client, it seems like I would be able to maintain a really seamless experience, right? Whether, if you were maybe leaving the company, you'd say, hey, I'm actually going to pass you over to Wei now, or maybe, you're a group of experts, but Wei is really specialized in this one area, product design, for example. And it's like, hey, this is who you really need to talk to and be interacting with to get what you need. And so it seems like it offers kind of that potential. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you could totally see this when you're dealing with things like getting a new loan for a mortgage, or you're refinancing. There are a few different personas that you could be speaking with during that process. There could be the main loan officer that you're working with, but then there's someone in their records department that needs verification on some of the things that you've submitted. So they could transfer you right over to that other person to, get that additional context, and then transfer you back to the loan officer or your main point of contact, to be able to kind of hand off in that way. So that's just one example.
Nice. Well, I really appreciate you walking us through Frontline today. I think the opportunity and the potential is pretty endless, in my opinion. But before we wrap, Mark, is there anything else you want to show, or do we feel like we're in a good place there? I think what you walked through was perfect, by the way.
Thanks. I think I hit on the high level things there. I don't know, Chris, you think there's anything that you'd like me to call out?
No, I think you did great. We have to wrap every one of these with me always making my marketing pitch in mind. But for all of you out there, we are extremely happy that you were able to join us and learn a little bit about Twilio Frontline and really the potential. All the stuff that Mark walked through, you can get a lot of information in Twilio Docs. It walks through those different integrations and experiences. But I'd encourage you all to go to twilio.com/frontline and go in and click request a demo. You can go through a really slick interactive demo that takes you kind of step by step through the touch and feel experience. But as we all know, at a certain point, you want a demo tailored to your business and your experience, and you're going to have questions. And so please feel free to reach out. We'd love to talk to you about the potential of Frontline. And as always, as I mentioned earlier, we can't wait to see what you build. Mark, thanks so much for showing everyone Frontline today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Chris.